Hello and welcome to Two Trees Gaming. We're attending a 1,000-point Middle-earth strategy battle game tournament at Warhammer World. It's the Throne of Skulls. I'm taking an army of Dunland led by Saruman and Grima Wormtongue. Louis is taking an all-mounted Morgul Knight army, and Aaron's got an Eastern alliance of Cand and Easterlings led by a Candish king and allied to Kamul on a Fellbeast. I managed to finish second in this tournament last year, and I'm hoping to go one better this year, although all that really matters is finishing higher than Aaron and Louis. Most of this footage that you're going to see in the video is recorded about 8 months ago, including some dodgy voice notes from just after the game. It's all a little bit rough around the edges. We tried something different, some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. Hopefully you enjoy it either way. And just before the video starts, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, the Baron of Dice, who's provided our Two Trees gaming dice for our patrons, but also has a whole range of other dice available. You can use a Two Trees Gaming discount code, which is on screen now. They've got dice for all kinds of Middle-earth factions, all kinds of game systems. Please go and support them, and enjoy the video. Throne of Skulls is a 1,000-point tournament, and it's a friendly, themey tournament. 50% of your tournament score is due to how well you play the game. You'll get 6 points for a major win, 5 points for a minor win, 2 points for a draw, 1 for a minor loss, and nothing for a major loss. The other half of the scoring is split into two. After you've played all of your games, you get 2 votes to vote for the best painted army that you played against, and 2 votes for the most sporting opponent that you played against. Those results combined will make up the other half of the scoring. On the way, Throne of Skulls. Can we just talk about the fact that Aaron's gone blind since we had this conversation?
It's really, really sunny.
And we've let him drive. I've bought Saruman at the point he's rallying the wild men of Dunland. So it's Saruman and a load of wild men. And then a mix of other Dunland. I've got all the Dunland heroes, so I've got Frida, who can counter cavalry, Goroth, who can call a free heroic defense, Thrydan, the Oathmaker, a Dunland chief, Grima, and Saruman. It's not a good army, but it has got lots of tricks and things it can do. Saruman can obviously shut down other heroes or sorcerer's blastings, and hopefully he'll stay alive and deny them victory points.
That's your plan for your
that's my plan.
Hero. Is that he's just going to deny people victory points.
Yep, that's it. But him winning priority automatically and then Grima being near them, I can drain them of might points, and I have 17 might. In the end game, I'm hoping I'm going to be controlling it every time with my might points. I've got the standfast on Saruman. Most of my army doesn't break till 66%, and if it does, Saruman's got his 12-inch standfast that also affects heroes. I'm hoping if the game goes on a while, I'll be alright. The issue of the game going on a while is it's mostly wild, man. I'm struggling to think of an army I would want to play against, but something with one big hero. I think that's my only bet there, because Saruman can shut it down.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I have no idea.
You versus Louis would be interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to play Louis. Yeah, we might see you on one of the tables tomorrow.
Two fish fighting each other.
For the first game of the tournament, I was drawn against a familiar face in Julian Hammond, who I was very happy to be playing again. He had Riders of Theoden, so it was actually a good matchup for me. My Wildmen get Hatred Rohan, so piercing striking with a two-handed weapon and Hatred Rohan, they'd be killing Royal Guard on 3s. But the scenario very much favoured his mobility. It was divide and conquer. In divide and conquer, each army is split into 2 and is trying to claim key areas of the battlefield. 3 objectives are placed, 1 in the centre of the battlefield and the other 2 between the centre and east and centre and west board edges. Players take turns deploying warbands alternating between diagonal corners of the board. You score 3 victory points if you have more models within 3 inches of the central objective. If you have at least 1 model there and there are no enemy models there, you score 5 instead. The other 2 objectives each score 1 if you have more models within 3 inches, or 2 if you have at least 1 model and there are no enemies. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent's army. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn. By the end of deployment, I had a throwaway half of an army. I had Thrydan, the Oathmaker, and the Chieftain in the top left corner of the board, ready to die. And in the bottom right, I had Saruman, Frida, and Goroth. I knew I couldn't be broken until the larger part of my army was at least partially engaged, so I always had a chance. As Julian had a cavalry force, he'd clearly be trying to mob me. He was going to kill one half of my army and then go for the objectives. It would be my job to use whichever half was mobbed to buy time for the other half of my army to get either into position to hold the objectives or to join the fight and break Julian. I lost priority for the first turn, which meant that Grima got surrounded by 3 royal guards, and that was that for the whole game. But they were worth a lot more points than him, so it wasn't the end of the world. Saruman put up a channeled terrifying aura, and a little bad positioning on my part meant that Aemma would be able to charge Thrydan on turn 2 if I lost priority. I did lose priority, and then lost a heroic move roll-off to get him out of dodge, so he was promptly charged by Aemma. I fell back on my turn with the rest of my throwaway army, rather than gambling on winning another roll-off the following turn. Remember, the aim of these guys is to buy time for Saruman's half of the force to enter the fray. And miraculously, Thrydan survived the one-on-one with Aemma. Saruman, meanwhile, had failed a Sorcerous Blast on Gambling, thanks to a roll of a natural 6 on the resist. On turn 3, I lost priority again, and Thrydan was charged by Durnelm, Aemma, and Elfhelm. It was actually a blessing though, as I used a Saruman to Sorcerous Blast a Royal Guard into the combat. That threw everybody, including Thrydan, from their horses, and it would protect Thrydan for another turn, as whoever won the fight was just going to be standing up. I then moved my throwaway army within an inch of his Royal Guard. A few turns pass and my attack on the Royal Guard hasn't gained me much in the way of kills, but Thrydan is still creating a nuisance in the centre, and now I hold 2 of the 3 objectives. The Riders of Theoden have one key special rule. Once per game, Theoden can shout death. That's going to give every hero in his army either a free heroic combat or a free heroic strike. I was trying to counter this as best I could, and the way to do it was either to kill Theoden or make sure all his heroes don't hit at the same time. And it was going really well until Theoden found himself in combat with Goroth and was worried that he would die. So he called death then anyway, and basically he doubled his kill count. I realised at this point that I would not be breaking his army, so I had to keep Saruman safe to make the most of his 12-inch standfast. Him and Goroth were also my only models with any might left. Unfortunately, 2 late game things went against me. Goroth did indeed kill Theoden, and Eowyn has to move within 3 inches of Theoden's body and gets to re-roll wounds and get a few other buffs against the person that killed Theoden. So far so good. Elfhelm though had called a heroic move, and Eowyn wouldn't be able to finish within 6 inches of him and 3 inches of Theoden's body. The ruling from the TO was that Eowyn would be able to move separate of the heroic move to be within 3 inches of Theoden's body. She charged Goroth, who had my only might point left, mobbed him, and he was cut down. That was a huge swing at the end of the game. And lastly, in the final turn, Daewine attempted to charge against Saruman, not having bodyguard now that Theoden was dead, needing to roll 3 dice and pick the 2 lowest thanks to the channeled terrifying aura. He managed to pass using his last will point. This meant I couldn't Sorcerous Blast one of Julian's models out of combat and out of range of the centre and into Merry's combat, which would stop him calling a heroic combat, which ultimately added 3 bodies to the middle. Furthermore, Saruman couldn't use his standfast and 3 of my models ran. It was very unfortunate, but it was largely down to my poor play, and it was a great game, fought really hard by both of us, but ultimately I did lose 5-4. Aaron, you've got Easterling and Cand Alliance, and Louis, you've got a Morgul Knights led by 3 ring raids. We did a little practice game last night and it didn't go particularly well.
I wish we did the interview yesterday.
Yeah.
That'd be much more buoyant.
Right, let's talk about your army, Lou. So you've got, it's Morgul Knights, it's Dark Marshal Kamul, the Witch King, and
two Black Numenori Marshals.
2 Black Numenori Marshals, and Shelob, and a couple of Stalkers, all skulking out the bridge at Minas Morgul. What's your overall strategy?
Shelob. Transfix. Hope Shelob takes out a high value target and then plow through the rest.
Are you worried that you've got the Witch King 3 attacks, everything else is 1 attack apart from the 2 Marshals?
Yeah. I wasn't until last night, and I am. Game 1, Divide and Conquer. Played against Lee Matthews with Rise of the Necromancer, Legendary Legion. Never played it before, scary as hell. Really good opponent, really friendly, really happy with me, not knowing the rules and stuff, really helped me out. So that was good. Divide and conquer, absolutely bricking it. Realised very quickly that I needed to end the game as soon as possible. So needed him to break me, but then no more, because I needed the models to take the objectives. Also, after the very first turn when I killed one and he popped up 6 inches behind me, realised I also needed to not kill him because he's just going to pop up closer and closer to the objectives. So created a shield wall in front where he had to kill 50% to get through me, and then also doing everything possible to not kill him. I had plans to dismount and shield, but didn't need to in the end. And I also had plans to use banners to re-roll to get lower to lose combats because he had no way of shielding, but also didn't get there. It was a really good game. He nearly killed the Witch King. He had 1 will left in the game. He was sapping will, blacked out and chill souling the whole time. But it was fine. Sheilab was the absolute MVP, barging the whole time. So there was a couple that popped up behind me and Sheilab was barging them back. Won 7-3, so a major win. If the game had lasted 1 more turn, I would have had a major loss. He was ploughing through them, and I had 1 Morgul Stalker on the far objective, 2 Morgul Stalkers on the middle objective in some difficult terrain. Pretty much everyone else was dead. But I had 2 points for the far one, 5 points for the middle one. That was it. Yeah, that's 7. So he didn't win the Witch King. He broke me and had 1 objective. So 7-3, major win.
Okay, Aaron, how are you going to know what dice have been rolled since your recent visual impairment?
Have you got dice and Melvin?
I can help. Oh, it's maybe not that bad. I can switch from my. Do I need to stay in some classes for continuity?
You can take them off.
So yeah, so I've got my leader's a Candish King, 10 horse, which was going to be 12 horse, and then I realised I'd only got 10 painted, so it's now 10 horse, 2 chariots, and 3 foot camp. And then I've got Amdor, Rutabe, a Dragon Knight, and Camel on a Fell Beast, with about 20 Easterlings on foot, I think.
But your leader, though, is the Candish King, isn't it? Rather than Amdor or Camel or Rutabe. You had a lot of choices there. Do you want to talk us through that one? Because I feel like that's a big decision.
I put a text into the our group chat, and Jake said to use the King. So that's why it was. He can kind of stay out of the way a little bit, and he's the 6-inch banner.
Yeah, it seems like most of the victory points in terms of leaders are for keeping your leader alive.
Yes, and
not killing with your leader.
You can throw Rutabe can sit in the middle, Master of Battling, and Amdor he just needs to hit whatever big hero they've got just repeatedly.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of a freebie, whereas the Candish King can just stay out of the way. A little bit twitchy that he's only got 2 wounds and a faint. So, not including Rutabe's free 1 for any Master of Battle and Amdor's free 1, I can call 12 heroic strikes across the game.
That is crazy. All your heroes can strike.
All my hero, every single model, every single hero I've got can strike.
That's terrifying. That's actually terrifying.
It's just a grind. Yeah. And Rutabe gets it for free and Amdor gets it for free.
And you've got a pair of chariots.
And I've got a pair of chariots. I think I'll be in the game against anything, but I don't think I excel against anything, but I don't think I'm particularly weak against
It's
anything.
a really good all-round army. Like, actually, normally I'd be mocking you, and I think you've got a shot. Like,
yeah, I think I'm just going to highlight that I'm a bad player.
yeah.
Game 1, played Sauron, the Witch King, a catapult and some trolls. We spread out. He wounded Sauron with his own catapult and then spent 4 turns prone, but the catapult wiped out a load of my guys. He broke me. I then broke him by wounding Sauron myself. And then, he won 5-2 by spreading out. Camel didn't do anything. He just flew about. And my king survived the whole game by skirting around the back.
Big spread of results there with a major loss, a minor loss, and a minor win. It's not ideal, but it's been 3 great games so far. For game 2, the scenario was Hold Ground. Hold Ground has 1 objective in the centre of the board. The player's armies arrive via the rules for Maelstrom of Battle, which are on screen now. You score 3 victory points if you have more models within 6 inches of the objective than your opponent. 5 victory points if you have twice as many models, and 7 victory points if you have 3 times as many models within 6 inches of the objective than your opponent. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent, or 3 if you break them and are not broken yourself. When one army is broken, roll a dice at the end of each turn. On a 1 or a 2, the game ends. If not, play continues and roll again at the end of the next turn. I was up against Rob Burton, who had a very Throne of Schoolsy army, and ultimately ended up winning the best painted prize for the whole tournament. It was a Mumuk converted to be a woolly mammoth, and 3 Chol chieftain herders. We were drawn on a table with Weathertop in the dead centre. It would be a largely pointless game as the Mumuks and Trolls couldn't actually get into the middle, so we moved it off to one side to make a couple of Mumuk lanes, and then it was go time. Now Grima, remember him? He's about to become my most valuable model. I paired him with one of Rob's Troll chieftains. I lost priority and moved onto the board with my army split. Thrydan in the centre of my board edge, Goroth to the left of him, Saruman and everyone else on my right board edge. The troll with Grima scored a 2 to be brought on, and so I brought him on in the far corner next to Goroth. My thinking was that I had 3 heroic strikes to his 1 thanks to Grima, so I should be able to bring it down if I could survive a turn. He then chose to bring the rest of his trolls on next to his other troll, but that meant they were all next to Grima. I'd probably die over there, but if I could take their might from them, I might be able to hold them up for most of the game. Then I got a bit more luck. The Mumuk rolled terribly and spent a point of might to not enter play on the first turn, and a second point of might to get behind my line when Rob won priority and rolled a 2 on turn 2. It killed a couple of my models, but I proceeded to countercharge it with everything that I could. The Fearless on the Wildman from the Oathmaker proved to be extremely useful. But he had Watchers of Karna in the top of the Howdah, each hitting on a 3+. They also had the Rocks upgrade. My chieftain was brought down by Rocks in the first turn of shooting, losing me 2 valuable points of might. Following turn, the Wildman Oathmaker was brought down by Rocks, losing me another 3 might points. Saruman tried to blast the driver off the top, but it was resisted. I spread my warriors around his base so that his warriors in the Howdah couldn't rappel down to get into combat with anyone, particularly Frida, my Fight 5 hero. All the while, Thrydan's group had been dropped off in the middle, and he's making his way to the Mumuk with his 2-handed axe. That would let him wound the beast on 4s with a piercing strike. And each one of those wounds, thanks to his mighty blow, would cause 2 wounds. He could feasibly do 4 wounds by rolling 2 4s. Back with the trolls, I had Grima and just enough warriors to be a nuisance. I managed to win the roll-off against the Mumuk to stop its trample with its last might point. Rob's only real hope now was for him to survive 2 more turns, which would be all of my might gone, and hope that he won the following priority. I knew I couldn't win or even end the game until the Mumuk and the warriors on the top were dead, as that's how I had to break him, so I had to kill it as fast as possible before his trolls could reach my hero-less band of warriors in the centre of the table. I caused a few more wounds on the Mumukil, and then it failed a stampede test. At this point, it was pointed out to me that I could just turn it around and run it off the board, but no way was I doing that. I wanted to bring the Mumuk down. So, due to my kindness, Rob suggested that I could smash it into some trees in front of it, which would count as fortifications. I declined that offer as well, until Rob pointed out that if I didn't move it, the guys on top would be able to throw their rocks as normal, so I smashed it into some trees. It lost another wound, then Thrydan got involved with his mighty blow, caused another couple of wounds, and it was left with 1. The following turn, Frida failed the courage test to charge into it to give it fight value 5, so now Thrydan was the only fight value 5 hero I had in combat, and the Mumuk had 1 wound left. Rob decided he was going to try and take Thrydan out by throwing rocks at it, and missed and hit his own Mumukil. He killed his own Mumuk with the rocks from the guys on the top. Aaron and Louis do love to point out the fact that I didn't actually kill the Mumuk myself, but a dead Mumuk's a dead Mumuk, and every single warrior on top of it fell to its death. Saruman blasted the guy that was driving it off the top the turn before. The game was done, excellent game, great opponent, and very, very happy to have killed a Mumukil. Let's see how Louis is getting on.
Game 2, hold ground against Sean. Really, really nice opponent. Gothmog's Legion. Maelstrom, we had Guritz. I had to deploy first. Deployed Witch King's Big Warband and Shelob close to the bottom edge. Guritz came up as Jexy. Both marshals at the complete opposite end of the board. First one got absolutely battered in 1 turn with the Troll and Gothmog, who then drummed all the way across the board, past halfway. So then he had 56 models, goal side. I was never going to plough through. Lost all the roll-offs, couldn't get a charge on him. He had a Shaman, which I tried to sack will first turn, rolled a 2, did nothing. So he had Fury the entire game and rolled about 3 courage tests for the entire game. I should have gone in right into the middle and instilled fear and created a bit of a bubble around the 6 inches in the middle because I had the horses, but I really fucked it. I thought I was going to kill Gurish's Warband in 1 or 2 turns and then get out of dodge, which I didn't. I was really silly mistake. But really nice game, really nice guy. Lost 10-1.
For Aaron's second game, he played Callum, who had previously played at the GT. Callum brought the same army of eagles that he took to the GT, plus Bayonne. Now Aaron had an army of 50 Uruk scouts in an objective scenario against the eagles, and he managed to get obliterated at the GT. Would he be able to avenge himself here?
In my second game, I played Callum, who I played at the GT. He reduced me down to 1 Uruk-hai, and I didn't kill anything. This time, he reduced me down to 1 Easterling. I did manage to kill an eagle and Bayonne. So I've now killed 2 of his models. He's killed 84 of mine.
But you're on the ascendancy. You kill 1 and then 2. So you play him another 4 or 5 times, you'll have those eagles.
Yeah.
My game 2 went on for quite a while, so I basically ran off for lunch, and then I realised that I forgot to enter the painting competitions. But Louis entered the Hero of Legend with his converted Black Numenorean Marshal. Aaron's entered the Icon of Legend with his converted Kumulon Fellbeast. That will be up against the Woolly Mammoth that I just played though. They've both entered the Warband of Legend, with Louis entering his Morgul Knight Warband with another converted Black Numenorean Marshal, and Aaron entering his Candish Riders. We also took a sec over lunch to visit the Warhammer World exhibition, which has got a lot more Lord of the Rings stuff in than it used to have, including a 20th anniversary celebration, which included this incredible Battle for Osgiliath board. God knows how many sets it took to do, and there's so many little details and conversions all over the place, like the trolls pulling the catapults and injured warriors. It's incredible. Go and see it if you get a chance, or if you pop over to a tournament. So I just killed a Mumuk, or 9/10 of a Mumuk, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. Turns out that would prove to be a useful little taster session for my next game. Clash by Moonlight has each player deploy within 12 inches of their board edge. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 hero left alive at the end of the game. If you have a hero left alive and have killed more heroes than your opponent, you instead score 3 victory points. Or if you have a hero left alive at the end of the game and your opponent has none remaining, you score 5 victory points. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, or 2 for killing them, and 3 victory points for breaking the opponent, or 5 if you break them and are not broken yourself. The game ends when one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. There's a crucial special rule for this scenario. Models cannot be targeted by shooting attacks, magical powers, or special abilities from over 12 inches away, but all shooting attacks do gain a bonus of +1 to wound. So my last game was against the Mumakil, but this is Throne of Skulls. So what's up next? Smaug and a dragon. Never played Smaug before, really looking forward to it. I had to protect my banner and my heroes and kill both Smaug and the dragon. Max's army couldn't break until I did, which meant the game would never end. Or wouldn't end until I'd broken. The scenario and the Saruman Grima combo fell very much in my favour though. Smaug would receive +1 to wound with his fire due to the scenario special rules, but he wouldn't be able to target anything more than 12 inches away. My plan was to wait for Smaug to move within 12 inches and then move 2 fearless wildmen forward. I would then use the Palantir to charge in and advance the rest of my line forward to within charging distance the following turn. As it happened, Max made things easy for me. He missed with a fireball on turn 1, and then decided to go organs blazing and charge at me. I countered with everything I could, including Thrydan, but I deliberately left Gorolf out of the action. If they were both in, I had much better chance of getting a 10 for the heroic strike, but I'd leave both my heroes vulnerable to attack, and they were my only heroes with heroic strike, especially as Smaug had charged. He could feasibly kill them both in 1 turn. Grimmer was lurking nearby, and I'd hoped to draw a couple of might out of him, but it didn't pan out, and I fluffed my heroic strike. After 1 turn of combat, Smaug barged, which inflicts a strength 9 hit on everybody, so I was 11 models down, Andy re-engaged with Thrydan and killed him, which meant now I only had Gorulf with 3 heroic strikes left in the game. Saruman tried to shut down Smaug a few times. It would mean Smaug kept his fight value, but if he was immobilized, he wouldn't be able to strike, so I could afford to save Gorulf's might on those turns. Except Smaug resisted 3 turns in a row on natural 6s, so I wasn't even getting through his might store. I did win combat 2 turns in a row though, dealing 7 and then 5 wounds. So Smaug had 8 wounds left, and he used 2 of his 3 might points to call a heroic strike thanks to Grima Wormtongue, and then he fluffed his dice. I won the combat, and then I had the following dice rolls to inflict 8 wounds. 8 5+, 4 6+, 5 6x4s, 4 6s by 5s, and 4 5s by 3s, thanks to the combination of axes, two-handed weapons, and piercing strikes. I managed to bring him down. 2 turns later, the dragon died, and I won the game. It was incredible. It was so Throne of Skulzy. I'd killed a Mumakil, and now a Smaug, and for me, things are only going to get more Throne of Skulzy from here. But first, let's check in with Louis and see how he's getting on.
Game 3, Clash by Moonlight, playing Imrahil fiefdoms, stuff with a Gandalf and a Huron. Best looking army, looks awesome. So had 5 heroes, but couldn't get near them. Went too heavy with my heroes. With some heroic combat, compelled a couple of guys out. Went through a load of troops, killed probably 15 of his guys to 2 of mine. Broke Gandalf's staff with the Witch King, which is pretty cool. But spent resources doing it, so their heroes just came into it and absolutely waded through him towards the end. But I managed to break him on the last combat of the last turn when I had 5 models left, so that took it to a 6-4 minor loss.
I played the Dale and Erebor Reclaimed. He set up in the middle and basically was shooting. It was Clash by Moonlight though, so it took him a while to get into range. And then I basically charged in my chariot, killed about 10 of his guys comfortably. The 2 chariots hitting the dwarves. Rutabe held them up in the middle, and then Kamul one-shotted Brand and then died. He shot down my Dragon Knight, then he overcommitted with Thorin and Dane, and then I used Andor and my Candish King to kill one of them, and then I got the other one the next turn, and then I wounded Brand in the last turn of the game to get a 6-5 victory.
So at the request of our patrons, before we crack on with day 2, we're going to take a quick trip to the conversion corner. First up is Louis' Black Númenórean Marshals. The first one uses the new Plastic Witch King and combines it with a Morgul Knight, and the second uses the Knight of Umbar and combines it with a Black Númenórean. Louis prefers the second one, but I absolutely love the first one, although I imagine the second one was a lot harder to make using 2 metal models. I can understand why he'd appreciate that one more. Aaron's Candish King on horse is converted from a Candish King on a chariot, and his Kamul is a whole different beast. It's got weights on the bottom of it just to keep it standing. I think there's about £6 worth in just pennies on there. It's got a statue on the base, and obviously the flight stand is the wing itself, so there is no flight stand on it, and he's just got wire running up the wing to keep it intact. It's glued in all kinds of places, but it's glorious. And of course, it's made from a fine cast Kamul and a Felbeast converted together.
Okay, we're on the way to day 2 of Throne of Skulls. It's gone pretty well for us so far. I'm buzzing. I've killed a Mumakil and Smaug so far, with a bunch of wild men. The Rohan game was a really, really good game against a really well-painted army. Just didn't quite have enough to get over the line in that one. Now, there's been a lot of chat before we got on camera yesterday from Aaron. A lot of chat of the Wild Man army is the worst army he's ever seen. I think
It still is the worst army I've ever seen.
I think you said that Jay the Rules Writer will carry me out on his shoulders if I win one game. And here we are with a Mumuk and a Smaug to stick on my wall.
Who got the last wound on that Mumuk, right?
Yeah. Who killed the Mimic?
Yeah, okay. The Mumuk killed itself. Lou, your army from the outset looked quite hard to play. You were out to prove us all wrong. How are all the 1-attack heroes doing?
Well, you say it like that, it sounds crap, doesn't it?
How's your terror come into play? Because obviously your whole army is terror.
No, it's not. We spoke about it already.
Why is it not coming to play?
Well, you said MVP was Grima. It wasn't. It was the Orc Shaman that had Fury bubble up still at the end of the game when I played Dothmog.
Why didn't you Black Darts yet?
What did happen there? Because that shaman should have been priority.
Twice now, so I sapped Will on him.
Yeah.
And he didn't resist that. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? And he's like, he obviously he's met me before, so he's like, you're more likely to fluff this up Will D3 to resist it, and he was right. So I got a 1. But then I did the exact same to Gandalf the game after. So Gandalf broke his staff, sapped his will, he didn't resist it, and then I rolled a 1 again. So then,
Did you?
Great.
Oh.
And then they have Angbor as well, who also makes it fearless.
yeah.
So you've had a load of fearless stuff.
I meant to say to you, have you been remembering you get reroll 1s to wound when you outnumber them? And you
He
get
doesn't
+1 courage.
outnumber them ever.
Yeah, so the only time I actually outnumbered anybody was the Rise of the Necromancer when I was trying desperately to not kill them, so they flipped behind me on the objective.
Oh god. So then, speaking of army bonuses,
So,
so your army bonus lets you re-roll. If the game does end, you can carry it on, can't you?
yes. So twice now, I've been 5-4 down, let them, and had a situation which I would estimate 15% of the time falls in my favour, 85% of the time falls in their favour, would allow me to win the game.
You gotta gamble on the.
You've got to gamble on that.
Yeah.
You've got to gamble on that. Made them re-roll it. Game continued. In both games, had the game ended. In the first game, had the game ended when I needed it to, I definitely won as a minor victory, and then it didn't end, and it just kept going, and that turned into a major loss for me, 5-2. Then the second game, it was a much more speculative roll. But there was a situation with killing eagles and Radagast where I could have won. And I've turned that from a 5-4, I think, loss into a 12-1.
Amazing.
But the one victory point I did get, no, it was a 5-3. The one victory point I did get was just stabbing Radagast. So, which is part of what I needed to do.
And what I will say about your tournament so far is my Smaug game finished quite early because it's just one model.
Yeah.
But I got to go and watch Aaron's last game pretty much in its entirety, and it was absolutely epic. Like, and you fought hard for that win.
Oh my
like,
God.
it was great. It was
My
like,
chariots, I tell you what, chariots eat dwarves. Chariots do work against dwarves. Those dwarves were like, we're going to be alright here. Defense 6. Dead. Dead.
A major win for me and a minor loss for Louis has put me in the lead for the tournament, although it's thrown us schools and the voting might not go my way, so it's still anybody's for the taking. Game 4 was to the death. In To the Death, each player deploys within 12 inches of their board edge. You score 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader or 3 for killing them. You score 3 victory points for breaking the opponent or 5 if you break them and are not broken yourself. You get 1 victory point if you have a banner alive at the end of the game, or 2 if you have a banner alive and your opponent doesn't. And you get 2 victory points if you reduce your opponent to 25% of their starting number. The game ends when one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. My next matchup was against another unconventional army, and I'd spotted it the day before, mainly because it was cool, but also because I was worried at the prospect of having to face it. Right, there's one army I really don't want to face, having been actually round the tables now. Do you remember seeing the army that was Dane, I don't know, about 20 Iron Hills Goat Riders and 2 Iron Hills Chariots? I do not want to face that. It's I mean, that's 2 crossbows going at me, and then when I get in range, I mean, how many wildmen is that going to kill in one turn? Like, I mean,
20.
20.
Yeah, the exhibition, yeah.
How would I even be? I guess Grimmer would be useful at taking out one of the Chariot's heroic moves.
Except don't forget it's not charging, so it can impact hit him.
Oh, that's good. That's a big call. And what about and Dane's got Master of Battle as well, so actually they can call that without it affecting Grimmer. I don't know how it'd be. Basically, we're just gonna hope I don't draw that.
Follow Dane round with Grimmer.
Yeah, then again Master of Battle, but then maybe I don't know what.
Well, those massive
Hopefully, we're just 20 Goat Riders.
You but leave three Goat Riders around.
You know what? Saruman's automatically winning priority has been really good. I've not mentioned that, but every game that's been amazing. There's a Space Marine. We're here at Warhammer World. Right, roll on day 2.
Needless to
Obviously,
say, I jinxed it. But I was really looking forward to playing this game. Dimitri travelled over from Greece to play in this tournament, and he was a fan of the channel, so it was going to be a real privilege to play him. And he was such a nice opponent, just like everybody else that I played over the weekend. But I had to decide, was I going to focus on killing the Chariots or killing Dane? And I just killed a Muma killing Smaug. I had to bring down a couple of Chariots. It would be such a great thing to add to my trophy collection. So let's see how I did. I made 2 errors in deployment. I dropped Grima wide of Dimitri's line. This meant that if I lost priority on the first turn, the chariot would be able to plough into him, and one of my biggest threats would be gone. The other mistake was deploying Gorulf behind this barricade. It was to protect him from the repeater crossbow, but it impeded his movement more than I would have liked. I got lucky and won priority for the first turn. This meant that Grima could get out of the way of the chariot, which at this point was more luck than judgment, and the rest of my army moved its full move forward. I couldn't afford to stand around and have my low defense army be peppered by crossbow bolts. Saruman did manage to blast a goat rider into Dane though, which took him off his pig, which made him much less of a threat. On turn 3 I lost priority and Grima was tagged by a goat rider. He wasn't surrounded, so he wouldn't be stuck there all game, but it did mean that Dimitri could move out of his 6-inch bubble and he'd be able to call heroic moves next turn. I moved second and I decided to move within charge range of the chariots. It meant that if Dimitri won the heroic move off, I would be taking a charge, and with the roll-offs working as they do, it was highly likely I'd be taking a charge from one of them. But I did have a plan. I called a heroic move with the Oathmaker, who had Saruman within 6 inches, and Saruman declared a heroic channeling. Dimitri called a heroic move with Dane and both of his chariots, and with the heroic moves working the way they do, you roll off, and whoever wins moves one of their heroic moves, and then the other one moves. So Dimitri's thinking if he wins, he can smash into the Oathmaker and stop my heroic move going off. I'm thinking if I win, I can charge into one chariot with the Oathmaker's heroic move and use Saruman to move away, disable the other chariot, and then back into 6 inches of the Oathmaker. Ultimately though, Dimitri won the roll-off, and I thought I'd position myself well, but a slight rotation on his chariot meant it didn't have to go through any of my Crabane. Gorulf was still blocked by a Crabane, so he was going to be safe, but I did lose 10 or 11 models in that one charge from the chariot. Then the Oathmaker got involved. Saruman disabled the other chariot, so that meant Thrydan would have the higher fight value over there, and this chariot was going to be swamped. It was about this point though that Dimitri realised he could have caught a few of the goat riders in his heroic move with the chariot. They could have blocked my path to it and had their charge bonus. I never mind removing a couple of models or taking a shot that was forgotten after the fact, but this was 60% of my army, so it was a bit too late, and Dimitri knew this. He was just kicking himself for it, because it really could have made a big impact. On the right of my line though, Thrydan did charge against the immobilised chariot. We need to talk about the crossbows on the front of these chariots, because they were awful for Dimitri. Thrydan must have taken, 12 hits over the course of the game, half of them into his horse. All Dimitri had to do was roll 1/4+ to take him off it, and he couldn't, and it meant that Thrydan was there with his mighty blow, which causes 2 wounds to a chariot if he needs it to. And because of that, you might call this arrogant, but I heroic combated off both chariots, or I declared a heroic combat off both chariots. The one against Thrydan didn't actually come off, but the one against the Oathmaker and Gorulf did work, and it meant then I had the charge on his goat riders, but ultimately I'm still Dunland. I didn't get many kills, but it was a big step up toward his break point. The initial charge from the chariot on the left, coupled with having to send one model a turn into Dane, meant that I was actually dangerously close to my break point now, going into the final turns of the game. I rode my luck on several occasions, with the chariot's crossbow hitting Thrydan's horse repeatedly, but failing to kill it every time, whilst Dimitri rode his luck by saving Dane from an immobilise and sorceress blast on natural 6s. It was a little sneaky, but I thought maybe a sorceress blast might be the best way to steal a victory point here. In the end though, I had a well-protected leader and banner, keeping a whole bunch of victory points safe for me. Dimitri's lack of a banner meant I would win if we could both break each other and both 25% each other, something which was looking increasingly likely. Eventually the chariot on the right did fall, but it had taken much longer than I'd hoped, and I was very nearly broken. I broke a turn or two later in the same turn as Dimitri's army, but with Saruman well positioned, his 12-inch standfast kept everyone around. That is, except for Grima, who was just out of 12 inches and ran for the hills. And on the other side of things, Dane was providing a fearless bubble to his troops. It was a race to 25% the other person, and ideally wound their leader. I won a crucial priority in the final turn of the game, knowing that I had to kill 3 of Dimitri's models to get him to 25%, and he had to kill 2 of mine to get me to 25%. I called a heroic combat with Frida and counted out my kills. A heroic combat came off, and I was 2 kills up, and then a Dunlander and a goat rider died on the other side. Saruman had failed to immobilise Dane, so it was Dane against the Crabane with 2 wounds. If I could survive, I'd get a major victory, and if it died, I'd get a minor victory. he smashed it to pieces. So I got a minor victory. I think it was 7-5, but it was an excellent game, and I'm not going to complain about such a narrow victory. I'm happy to have won it all, and it was a great game, great opponent. Hopefully we'll get to play again in future. Let's see how Lou's getting on.
Line against you. Oh my god.
To the death scenario, Sauron, Catapult, Drum Troll, Troll Chief, Witch King. Catapult direct hit on the Witch King early doors, obliterated him, died a turn later. He later realised he should have been catapulting Shelob, would have been instant kill. Went toe-to-toe with Sauron for a few turns, trying to drain some might. Troll Chief threw a stone at Sauron, wounded him, couldn't even use his might to take it down, so still wounded him. That was the only wound on the leader until the very last turn of the game. When Kamul, best play ever, he won the heroic combat roll-off, but their catapult troll failed to charge. Kamul was already within his control zone, so he skirted around Kamul, charged 2 crew, 1 random knight charged the 3rd crew. Kamul uses 2 of his last 3 will to sap Will the Witch King, who fails to resist it with his second to last one. So he then vanished because the Witch King had charged a prone Shelob. So she then got up and charged Sauron, who had charged 2 prone Black Numenorian marshals, and then was later joined by the Dark Marshal and 1 guy on foot for 1 final combat with Sauron. So I needed to kill every model I was in combat with to take him down to 25%, and then also wound Sauron twice more to then break him. The knight went toe-to-toe with 1 siege crew, murdered him. Kamul went toe-to-toe too, put 2 wounds on the first one, so he was dead. But then he went against a siege vet, put on 1 wound with a 6. So it was fate or lose the game. Fate was with a 2, dead. Kamul gets 2 back, so he stays alive. And then it's all about the Sauron combat. Sauron rolls a 2, I roll 1-6. Shelob puts a wound on him, venom back, which at the start of the game my opponent reminded me about, which I'd not been using all tournament. Rerolled those wounds, hit 2 more on Sauron, took him down to below 2, broke him, down to 25%, won the game 10-3.
Aaron got drawn against the Paths of the Druidan, which is a highly mobile army. You kind of have to target the Wozers or you're really in trouble. And then to the death, where you deploy separate, it's a really hard matchup for Aaron. He did end up losing the game, but it was against a glorious looking army, so you can't be too sour about it. And then, during game 4, I got a really nice surprise that my army had been nominated to be one of the best army nominees. That's basically the top between kind of 8 and 12 display boards get to be put at the front for over lunch. People come and vote on them, and the one with the most votes will win. I know I'm not in with a shout of winning, but I am over the moon with this. I mean, a very, very generous nomination. Let's take a look at some of the boards that I was up against, but what I really wish I'd done was photograph the ones that didn't get nominated. It's such a big part of Throne of Schools. So many people bring display boards and it adds so much to the tournament. It's a lot of the reason it's our favourite tournament to go to, just walking around the tables between games, checking out what other people have brought, what interesting armies they're using and how they've managed to put that together on a display board. But just really, really happy to be nominated. I'm not going to be winning this one, but very, very, very happy with the nomination. So I've killed the King of Rohan, a Mumakil, Smaug, a dragon, and a couple of Iron Hills chariots. And up next, it's the Eagles and Beorn. And it's the same Eagles and Beorn that Aaron played earlier in the tournament and lost to, and the ones that he lost to badly at the GT. I need to avenge him for the sake of 2 trees here. The scenario is really going to work for me though. It's domination. In domination, 1 objective is placed in the centre of the board. Each player then places 2 more objectives anywhere on the board at least 12 inches from another objective and 6 inches from a board edge. Then, players roll to determine who deploys on which side of the board. Each player may deploy anywhere in their half of the board. You score 2 victory points for each objective that has one of your models and no enemies within 3 inches of it. If there is an enemy within 3 inches of it but you have more models there, you score 1 victory point. You get 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader and 1 victory point for breaking the opponent. The game ends when one force is reduced to 25% of its starting number. I had a huge numbers advantage, but Aaron had played Callum at the GT in February, and he was using a similar army. Aaron had Lurtz as scouts in an objective scenario and managed to lose, so I was very wary of my opponent's skills. I didn't want to get hurled or make it easy for the Eagles to drop inside my lines, so I bunched up in an effort to dictate where he'd be able to land. I left gaps between my models to reduce the impact of his hurls, which would be deadly against my wildmen. But this is the game where my Dunland chieftain having a warband of his own really helped me. I had to deploy first and dropped him. Then my opponent only had high value targets to drop. As soon as Bayon deployed, I placed all my remaining models as close to him as I could. He was the model I was worried about most and his least mobile model, so I deployed Grima right next to him. If I won priority, I could use Saruman to immobilize him and keep him from transforming into a bear. In the end, I didn't leave anything to chance, and I used my Palantir on the very first turn of the game. It was a worthy gamble given I had a ton more might than Callum and could feasibly remove 20% of his army in one fell swoop. With Grima lurking, Callum didn't counter. I used Compel to pull Bayon forward and charged him with what I could. It was a Crebain, a Horseman and Thrydan. He was unable to heroic strike though due to the Compel, and I cut him down in turn 1 with some very good rolling. The rest of the battle was a huge uphill climb for Callum, who never let his spirits drop. Grima stuck around near Gwahir and Saruman blasted Radagast off the top of his eagle, and then a combination of fearless wildmen, two-handed axes with piercing strikes, and heroic strikes brought down each eagle in turn for a 12-0 win. Everything in your army causes terror, and is obviously you've got the -1 terror bubble. So apart from things that are fearless, what are you planning? You could drain Aragorn's courage. Is that a thing?
That was a consideration because you got 3 wraiths, 2 turns of draining courage. And then Aragorn stood there like a potato.
You bastard.
So it's at this point I remind you that it's 50% best game votes.
Just do it. Go for 5-0. Don't worry about the best games.
And what's like your worst case scenario?
Most things. 1 high value target, Captain of the White Tower, or Boromir.
He's calling out Boromir.
No,
He's calling out Boromir.
I heard you say Boromir is my best.
I heard him say Boromir cannot win against your army.
Hit me with the Riders third. That's it.
Okay. So basically you want an army where you're not going to get cavalry bonus against. Perfect. Okay.
Because I feel like I am, to some extent, counter cavalry. Still get my lance bonus. I've got my terror, so hopefully I'll get that lance bonus.
Yeah.
They're not getting their cavalry bonus. And I can tank you with the armoured horse on 10-6.
Yeah, right. So he fancied himself in a game against the Riders of Theoden and he got his wish. How did it pan out? He got absolutely battered. He killed Theoden on the first turn of the game using a load of black darts, but that was it. His opponent was a regular, Phil Beale, that we'd had the pleasure of playing before, and he had a running total of the might that Gamling had restored throughout the game, and it was 29. It looked like a lot of fun, but it wasn't even close, and Louis ended on a major defeat, although he didn't make a note of the actual score.
I played an Elrond and Elendil alliance with Círdan and Eristor. So he had strength 4 behind fight value 5 elves. Basically, I deployed a phalanx of Eastlings on the right-hand side to slow down Elrond and all the knights. And then I went hard in the middle, smash his troops, which sort of worked. I flew Camul over on a heroic combat to throw Círdan through all the combats to the front, which means I killed Círdan in the first turn. I then got Eristor pretty easily as well. Elendil did quite well. My biggest issue was my phalanx of, and it was only 10 Eastlings with pikes, absolutely melted to the Rivendell cavalry. I thought they'd hold them up for 4 turns, because you're almost guaranteed it because you've got to go through 3 lines of them. I think they went in 2 through a variety of heroic combats and wrapping around. I had a chariot run all the way through to take the back objective, and then in the very last turn, Elendil used his free heroic combat to contest the back objective. I then, on basically the last roll of the dice, barged with Camul, rolled a 6 to take the objective in my half with him, which meant we ended up with, I think it was a 5-5 draw. But a really good game, nice opponent, decent game, bit annoyed. I could have won. I had an opportunity to kill Elendil's horse, and I went to try and kill him. If I'd have killed his horse, he wouldn't have been as manoeuvrable, which was a bit of a rookie error. But yeah, really good game, great tournament, and yeah.
At the end of the tournament, I was very happy with my game score, having won 4 of my 5 games convincingly, and only narrowly lost the other. But Throne of Skulls is so good because your game score only makes up 50% of your total score. The other 50% is split into 2. Every player has 2 votes for the best painted army that they faced, and 2 votes for for the most sporting opposition that they faced. The painting votes are worth 25% and the sporting votes are each worth 25%, with the 50% added to the game score. That's how the tournament's ranked. So I had 24 points for my games. I received 3 best game votes, which I was very happy with, and then 1 best army vote, which I was happy with, but is a clear indicator that I should not have been nominated for the top army prize. Very happy though to have received 6 votes, and overall that put me in 9th place out of 76, which I'm just thrilled to bits with. I actually won a Best in Bracket award, which means that out of all the people who also got 4 wins, I had the best victory point difference, which is a nice little bonus.
We're in the Warhammer World car park. There's 80 players have just done Throne of Skulls. We've just come out of the results. And Louis, you got how many wins and draws and losses and things?
2 wins for 3 losses.
2 wins, 3 losses. And but with the votes, we don't know how they fell, but you've ended up finishing 17th.
Which is amazing.
Which is amazing, because that army that you took was absolute poo. I mean, the guy at the end, I watched the end of that Rohan game, and he was farming might. What did he have, like 29 might against you, more than that? It was crazy. And assuming, because you finished 17th, for some reason, after you blacked out at his third in turn 1, you've ended up with the best game or best army from that.
He's come back.
Aaron, what's your win-loss?
I'd rather not say.
I think didn't you get one win, 1 draw?
I got a minor win and a draw.
So that's much better than usual from Aaron?
Yeah, I had to roll a 6 to tie.
Oh, with the barge,
That's what it came down to, yeah.
I've managed to finish 9th, which is great after 4 wins, and I got a Best in Bracket award and a Army nomination award, which Best in Bracket I think was Best in Bracket I think was thoroughly deserved. I got 3 12-0s. The Best Army award, that was maybe generous.
We had to warn Jake. Jake was going to go and shake the army nominee's hand, and I said, you shouldn't do that because it's going to look like you slipped the money.
It was very generous. I was very, very happy to be in the cabinet and get that nomination. I feel a little bit for my first opponent, Julian. He's a great guy. He won all 5 games. I gave him my vote, although I won't disclose all my votes. But I thought he was going to smash it. But congratulations to Damien, who won again. A great tournament. I mean, our next one's GT, is it, guys?
Yeah.
Are we all good?
Yeah.
Okay, roll on the next one.
Thank you so much for watching. We placed really well in that tournament and it was a fantastic event and super Throne of Skulls, as I kept saying throughout the video. Fighting against Mimics, double chariots, Smaug, eagles, it all just felt right, and crucially, I did finish ahead of Aaron and Louis. Hopefully you really enjoyed the video. Like I say, it was a bit rough around the edges, and insider knowledge, I'm filming this on the day that they've announced the new Strategy Battle Game Edition. We wanted to get a video together and discuss that as soon as possible, but we've got families and jobs all at different times. It's all a bit carnage. The plans for the channel are now up in the air with film battle reports. We don't know if they're going to go obsolete. It's all very exciting. Hopefully Two Trees Gaming is going to be the place to come and explore all things New Edition. We hopefully will have you along with the ride. Please join the Patreon, and we'll see you again soon.